Hello. This is Caladoon, and welcome to episode 3 of Let's Analyze. Today we're going to be talking about one of the things that pushes us to play through custom maps, is custom items and loot. Now, of course, loot is important, right? With regular Minecraft having random loot in numerous places, dungeons, mine shafts, etc. But it's important enough that there's a number of games built almost entirely about the joy of finding random items. So what I want to focus on today is kind of the different types of loot in Minecraft and what they let the map maker accomplish. First off, we can broadly define loot as, useful or pointless. For example, a chest full of diamonds or an awesome custom sword is almost always useful, whereas dirt and a flower pot probably aren't. Also note that some items can be useful or not depending when in the game you receive them. An iron pickaxe will be invaluable in the first few dungeons of a CTM, but near the end of the game, it's probably not even worth picking up. Others' items will vary by playstyle. Someone that primarily tunnels around, uses bows and lava and, very slow tactics, won't appreciate, a sharpness 3 iron sword nearly as much as players that just rush. Second, we can also categorize loot as kind of being cool or utilitarian. Now, this is a lot more subjective and is ultimately determined by how the player reacts. Finding speed 2 potions might make the player go, oh, these are useful. Whereas finding a custom potion with, say, speed 2 jump boost and, a custom name like Elixir of the Cheetah or something, will probably make the player a lot more excited and interested. Even though they're functionally identical, the speed 2 is really the beneficial effect there. The customization and the rarer potion effect makes the second item seem a lot cooler. So, we have 2 different ways of categorizing items, which combined means there's 4 different item classifications total, as shown in this item Punnett square. The first, useful and utilitarian, is exemplarized by building chests. Now, most complete the monument maps have these, and even if the player doesn't actually make a house, they typically feature stacks of blocks with lots of high blast resistance, which is perfect for making bridges and walls whenever there's creepers or gas or anything else exploding nearby. They'll also usually feature some stacks of glowstone, which, whether you prefer glowstone or torches, is a matter of personal preference, but it's hard to say no to free lighting elements. Next, we have pointless and utilitarian. Now, in Depths of Irkalla so far, the only really example I've found of these has been the chest full of flower pots and bowls over in the Molten Mines. Now, flower pots are solely an aesthetic item, and while bowls are useful for mushroom stew, at this point in the game the player most likely has a mob farm, not to mention a lot of the chests seem to be just full of useful food. Next, useful and cool. Now, these items don't need too much explanation. They're the awesome items, the super-powered weapons and armor that let the player survive and win. Basically, if you find an item and equip it as soon as you find it, it's probably in this category. And finally, there is pointless and cool. This is best shown in Minecraft by the music discs. They do nothing to help you survive, but their rarity and the difficulty of getting them makes them exciting to find, and really their only purpose is aesthetics. There's even 12 of them actually though, so that you kind of get that the collect them all feeling that makes Magic and Pokemon and really any kind of trading card game so popular. Well, now that we have 4 categories and have a broad idea of what types of items go within what, let's discuss why we use each type. First off, with useful and utilitarian items, the chests are nice, but they're not that exciting. They're the survival chests. They give you the basic gear and items that keep you alive. Arguably, they're best placed at intersections or in other low-danger locations. This will give the player a reason to explore the safer areas instead of running right through. It kind of encourages the exploration aspect that I think got many of us into CTM maps in the first place. Alternately, you can kind of place them very obviously within a dangerous area to guide the player on a specific path. In this approach, you're basically trying to make the player go, ooh, a chest, so that they'll head in the direction you want them to, allowing you to better balance the difficulty since you theoretically know their path. Now, the reason that we want useful and utilitarian items to do that is because we want the player to be somewhat rewarded for following the path. You don't just want to have a path full of chests, a path with chests full of sticks. Next up, there's pointless and utilitarian. These are arguably the trickiest of the lot. They're best used sparingly since they don't really excite and they frequently disappoint. Imagine, running through a hard dungeon and then suddenly you find a box with, a flower pot in it. It's really disappointing. You feel kind of let down that you did all that effort for lame loot. Now, they're best used really for environmental storytelling. Maybe a chest within a burnt building telling you, giving you some clues on what the building used to be. In the mushroom mines, we have those chests full of the bowls and the flower pots, which are supposed to be cups. It lets you go, oh, okay, this used to be a cafeteria. Now, admittedly, despite what I said earlier, it is perfectly valid to use these for trolling the player, as evidenced in a lot of Vex's maps. Now, items that are useful and cool are really the guiding reason for the player to explore, and the perfect example of this was the Spider Slayer, that gold sword back in the Spider's Den. Now, not only is it absurdly useful, but you find it very early in a side tunnel. But, since it's gold, it's going to break very quickly. It's only going to last for 32 hits. So once it breaks, the player has in the back of their mind, I want another of these, and so scours every single one of those many, many side tunnels looking for another one of these swords. And next, pointless and cool. Now, the best use of these items is to take a chest that's useful and otherwise utilitarian and jazz it up and make it exciting. Best example I found so far in Irkalla is those enchanted fire charges scattered around. Because there's something that normally can't be enchanted, that inherently makes them cool. They're something outside the normal rules of the game. Now, in placing them, though, you have to be careful not to overuse them, since their coolness is more fleeting than useful and cool items. For example, useful and cool items, you get a nice piece of armor or an enchanted sword, you're going to equip it and constantly use it. Whereas these items have a tendency to just sit and languish in a chest somewhere. Now, I've mentioned this a little so far, but I want to reiterate it. You can't place useful and pointless items in the same way, regardless of how cool they are. Imagine you just spot your way through a huge, ruthless dungeon and you see a box with some glowstone off in the distance. You get there and it's a stick with Silk Touch. It's a rage moment. Now, normally, that would be kind of nice. You can get glass and glowstone with it. It's a pointless but cool item. Here, though, since you worked so hard, it doesn't matter how cool it is, you feel cheated and unrewarded. A high-risk chest like that should, with very few exceptions, be useful and satisfying to get. Now, conversely, if the player notices a tiny little ledge way up on a cliff, and they pillar up, then it's perfectly acceptable to find a pointless item, since they probably weren't expecting to find something anyway. The fact that there's anything up there makes the player feel awesome, and frankly, everyone likes feeling awesome. Well, I hope I've given you a new way to think about item placement and chest positioning, and maybe even some motivation to come up with some cool new items. Now, before I close, while we all like trolling players, just try not to overdo it with the sticks. This has been Caladun. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.